Hi guys, I'm Rachel Gariepy. I'm a perfumer and I'm the founder of Bodi Botanica. I do custom fragrances, I teach workshops, and I also work in the wedding world in events. I do immersive scent experiences. I try to make events a little bit more special by adding the power of scent to them, which is, I think, an often forgotten sense. Yeah, that's it. I guess I'm gonna answer these questions now. What's the most surprising thing someone said after experiencing the fragrance they just made? It doesn't smell like cat butt, which is because they used a material called civet, which actually the natural of civet is the anal secretions of a civet cat. But obviously we use synthetics nowadays. We don't actually harm any animals in perfumery, hopefully. So I encouraged somebody to use a little touch of civet in their formula. And it does, in fact, smell on its own like cat butt. If you just use the right amount, I had them use a half a drop. And you can't smell that, but it kind of adds a depth and unctuousness to the scent. So that's probably the most surprising thing. Okay. Every event has its own rhythm. How do you translate the vibe of a celebration into fragrance notes? I think it's not up to me. I think the rhythm that people want to choose is their own choice, and I just get to be kind of a facilitator. I'm here to answer questions about the notes. Oftentimes, somebody will be excited about a particular note, and I'll just guide them and say, okay, if you love citrus, why don't we try a citrus and a wood or a citrus and a spice? I'm just kind of there to help, but really, I'm learning a lot from people. I'm getting inspired by their choices too, so it's not always up to me. If fragrance were art, would it speak in brushstrokes, sing in melodies, or move like a dance in the air? Fragrance is art. So I guess it works in all those ways. I think the minute you start to try to create in fragrance something that is unique. So obviously the Impressionists, they would paint, fruit, they would paint landscapes, but they would turn them into something that was singular and unique. And that's our goal. I'm not trying to recreate the scent of an apple. I'm not trying to recreate the scent of peaches necessarily. I'm trying to create something unique that is evocative and makes people think and makes people want. And so, yeah, I do think fragrance can be art. You've hosted events for groups from 5 to 500. How do you keep the experience personal even at that scale? Yeah, I think that's a really important thing to do. And as the numbers rise, it can be more difficult to do that. But I think I just genuinely like people, so it's not hard for me to connect. I feel genuinely excited every time somebody comes up to my table and wants to work with me and wants to create something. It's a new experience every single time. There are countless choices for each person, and so what they choose is interesting to me, and so I don't have to fake it. It's exciting for me, and I think that makes it exciting for them. How do you balance science, instinct, and emotion when you're blending? That's a good question. It's just, I think a lot of it is emotion at first, because you create a scent story. The first thing you have to do when you're creating a scent is you have to know what you want it to smell like when it's done. It's really difficult to create something when you don't actually have a full idea, because you can get lost. Materials can get muddy. You can start reaching for things because you're distracted by materials. So I think it's got to be a combination of all those things, is understanding the story and the emotions behind it, the science behind blending and understanding top, middle, and base notes, and what's going to work, what's going to have sillage, what's going to have lasting power, what's really going to translate with skin. But how I do it, that's a really unanswerable question. Let's see. When someone leaves your fragrance bar, what experience do you hope they carry with them? really want them to have fun. I really want people to not be nervous that they're going to screw up. I want people to leave with something they're really proud of and excited to wear. And I think that that's generally achievable. I have never had an experience where somebody left being like, oh, I hate this. If they hated it, I'd let them do it again. But it's really genuinely almost just going to be a wonderful experience no matter who you are. And I've taught 14-year-old boys. I've taught security guards in their 60s. I've taught all sorts of people, and everyone seems to love it. When creating a scent for an event, where do you start? The people, the place, or the purpose? I think it's a combination of all three. I recently did a custom scent for a wedding. It was actually a vow renewal. They were married during COVID. And I think creating a scent for them was specifically important because obviously COVID was a time where a lot of people lost their sense of smell. And so scent became kind of an important thing to a lot of people. And they had kind of missed the experience of having a large wedding during their actual marriage. But they got to, a few years later, have this experience where they threw a vow renewal, and they wanted me to create something custom for their vow renewal. And I worked with them closely. They came to my studio, they smelled a bunch of different materials and different scents that I'd been working on, and we landed on a peach ginger scent. And that was in part because it felt like a great marriage between the end of summer and entering into early fall, and also something that would appeal to a large group of people, unisex, not gendered. And so I had to really think about all of those things, all those elements all at once in order for the scent to be successful, and I believe that it really was. All right, let's see. If your life could be captured in a fragrance, what would you name it? Oof, that is impossible. I guess right now the answer would be wild. My life is, if you told me what my life was going to be 5 years ago, I wouldn't have believed you. But it's true, life is pretty wild. If your studio had its own signature scent, what would it smell like and what emotion would it leave behind? So my studio, Bodi Botanica, it's not one signature scent, but the signature behind each of my fragrances is that I'm not trying to cover up the scent of the human body, I'm trying to harmonize with it. I think that the smell of humans is sexy, it's beautiful, it's innately what attracts us to one another. And so I really am not trying to create a fragrance. A lot of the department store fragrances are really strong, really sharp, really unnatural smelling. And I think Bodi Botanica fragrances, the goal is really nature-oriented, human-focused, and approachable for anybody, especially those people who aren't maybe attracted to normal department store fragrances. So that's the through line. When people wear one of your creations, what do you hope they feel? The scent itself or the emotion it awakens? I hope they feel like themselves. And I hope they feel like they can still commune with nature. That's really important to me. I'm a big hiker, and I have in fact been on a lot of hikes. And recently I was in Greece, and I passed by this like older French woman, and she just smelled intensely of like very strong, expensive French perfume, which is a vibe, and it's sort of amazing that that's what she chose to wear in the mountains in Greece, in the forest. But it kind of got me thinking, like, I want my scents really to be able to commune with nature in a harmonious way. I want you to be able to spray something on like Minoru or Santa Rosa and walk through the woods and feel like you're part of the atmosphere as opposed to fighting against it. All right. When blending for yourself, what's the one ingredient that always sneaks its way in? I'm embarrassed to say this, but probably ISO-E Super. It's like a synthetic wood, transparent wood note that is really a great blender. And so it kind of ends up sneaking its way in because woods are the heaviest molecules in perfumery, and so they end up lasting the longest on the skin. So You always want to make sure you have scent, you always have some like base in there that will linger for a long time. And Isobe Super is just kind of a great translucent base. It doesn't, of course it affects the scent, but it harmonizes with a lot of different types of things. I also love patchouli, and I know that that is a, maybe polarizing scent because a lot of people think, oh, patchouli, dirty hippie. But I feel like it's such a beautiful scent, and I end up reaching for it quite a lot. Every fragrance tells a story. What's the most unexpected plot twist you've created? Really interesting. So I have a collection of fragrances, and I think my goal originally was to release 3, but I made 5 that I made 4 that I really liked and I was really into, and I thought 4 doesn't feel right, even number feels wrong. I feel like I have to just either create one more or take one away. So I wanted to give myself both options. So I created a 5th fragrance. It's called Nocturne. It's kind of my ode to nocturnal florals, ylang-ylang, tuberose, jasmine. It's really sensual and sort of greenhousey. It's got some indolic heat in it. And there was something about it that I kind of knew it was special, but I also didn't love how it smelled on me. In fact, I thought that it kind of had a little bit of a sour note when it was on my own skin. But I smelled it on a few of my friends who have more melanin than I do, and it became this like creamy, luscious, beautiful scent that I was obsessed with, and I wanted to smell it on them all the time. And honestly, I think I've sold more of that scent than I've sold of any other scent. It's kind of become my most popular scent. So that was a really surprising plot twist. All right. When you see people sharing their scent creations at an event, does it feel like you've bottled a moment or started one? Definitely. I love seeing people get inspired by the materials at hand and just get super pumped to create something. So yeah, bottling a moment feels real because, events are something hopefully you want to remember, especially weddings. And because scent is so linked to memory, it's so easy to utilize that as a tool for memory. And so I really feel like I'm adding something particular and useful when I come to an event like a wedding, because there's no chance you can forget it because you're taking something home with you that you get to smell and reuse. And hopefully that's something that you really love. What's the first step in translating someone's personality into scent? I think often I don't necessarily think about translating one's personality into scent so much as what one wants to feel like that day or in that moment. I've never been one to just choose one thing and stick to it. I'm a creature of novelty. I'm a very eclectic person. I like to dress for the occasion that I feel fits that occasion. I like to smell the way I feel like I should smell for a specific occasion. I want the proper cocktail for the occasion, the proper glass of wine, the proper meal. I think I'm somebody who really thinks about what I want to feel like in that day or in that moment as opposed to all the time. Like, God bless your Karl Lagerfelds who wear the same outfit every single day, but that just couldn't be me. So I think translating the personality for the moment is more something I'm focused on. And the first step is really, I guess, to think of atmosphere and what the scent story is, what the heart of the moment is. And I sort of tend to pick 3 materials that are the heart of the moment. And that's kind of like my main accord in the scent. And then I move from there and add modifiers and experiment and give it time. And that's kind of my process. What's one scent memory that always reminds you why you started blending in the first place? I guess I read an article, and it's maybe not even a scent memory, but I read an article about ambergris and how fascinating this material is. Ambergris comes from the body of a sperm whale. What happens is a sperm whale eats a giant squid, It can't digest the beak, so it forms a fatty mass around the beak in its stomach, and then it has to expel that fatty mass, and I don't even know if we're sure which end of the whale it comes out of, the front end or the back end. That floats around on the water for some time, and then it washes up on shore. And if you find it, it's worth a bunch of money, and it's one of our most beloved and expensive perfumery materials, and generally what I'm using is often mostly synthetic, or I've never used real ambergris because I can't afford it. But I remember before I'd ever smelled it, reading about it, thinking, I have to smell ambergris. Like, I have to know what this smells like. It's so intriguing to me. And so I think pretty shortly thereafter, I signed up for my first perfumery class. It was a naturals class. We didn't have any ambergris in it. But then after that, I signed up for another one. In my first perfumery class with the Perfumer studio in Hollywood, we got to smell real ambergris. And it was just like, yes, finally, I know what this smells like. It's incredible. It's so sweet and delicate for something that came out of the body of an animal. It's just something very singular. So that was, for me, a very indelible scent memory that led me to the study of perfumery. What role does ingredient quality play in shaping the character of your fragrances? You just have to use quality ingredients. I think as a perfumer, you're trained that there's only so many places that you can trust to look for materials. And I trust my instructors, and they tell me these certain places are places that we will buy materials from, that we will buy our alcohol from. So obviously, I think quality is incredibly important. You don't want to utilize any suspect materials that might be harmful to anybody. So hugely important. A photo says, remember this moment. A movie says, remember this story. What do you want your scents to say? I guess it's remember me. I guess it's think about me, even when I leave the room, but maybe just for the person or the people closest to you, hopefully not the whole room. I think you want to intoxicate, you want to entice, you want people to ask you what you're wearing. And that's because, to some extent, we all want a little bit of positive attention. And hopefully, yeah, it's something that people like, as opposed to being like, what are you wearing? Remind me never to buy that because I hate it. Hopefully it's something that's wonderful, that they love. So yeah, I guess it's remember me. What's one detail people never realize goes into creating a scent? I think, that's a tough one. One detail. Something really particular that people don't know is that if you're going to sell a scent, you need to adhere to certain standards. The International Flavors and Fragrance Association, or IFRA, kind of monitors allergens. And so it's a very difficult mathematical process to figure out if your perfume is within IFRA standards. It's something I'm going through currently as we speak. I'm not a math guy. I had no idea perfumery was going to make me do so much math. But I'm learning a lot and pulling a lot of hair out also. So that's why sometimes when people ask you to create a scent, they think it's a lot simpler of a process than it is. If you're not going to sell the scent and you're just doing a custom one-off piece, you have a lot more leeway. You can basically use whatever you want. Obviously, you want to talk about allergies with anybody who you're working with, but for the most part, you have a more freedom in your palette. But when you're really creating something to sell on the market, you have to adhere to these standards. Or it's not a legal issue, in fact. I don't know if you legally have to do that, but it's sort of best practice. And if you're going to be a perfumer that is selling things to market, you want to be mindful and adhere to some of these rules. They're there for a reason. Although it's a complicated and complex conversation because more and more materials keep being restricted or banned. And I'm all for things getting banned if they're becoming extinct. But the allergens thing is really interesting because we don't ban peanut butter because some people are allergic to it. We just trust that anybody who's allergic to it is going to avoid it. But for some reason in perfumery, we're just much more strict. And I think that it's an interesting and difficult topic. How do you adjust your creative process for an elegant wedding versus a high-energy corporate event? I think it's always about the people. Clearly, people who are planning a wedding are very specific. They have a vision, they want to carry out their dream. And so it can tend to be a lot more work in that respect. Corporate events oftentimes are planned by even outside people from the company, and they just have kind of a set of guidelines that they want you to stick within. So it can be fun to do a corporate event because you get to kind of choose your own adventure sometimes, whereas weddings can often be a little bit more regimented, and you need to really like check in all the time with how you're gonna present, how you're gonna brand, maybe the floral arrangements on your table, the color story you're gonna go with. But I don't look at them as that different. I think my goal in both of these spaces is to make sure that people have something fun to do while they're there, enjoy my presence, that I'm like not an awkward presence in this space, that I'm like an additive presence in this space, and that everybody there that comes up to my table leaves with something that they love and that they're gonna remember the event by. And so ultimately, it's not too different. I think that's it.